Most business owners think their operating agreement protects them. And in many ways, that's understandable. They spent the time to create it, they signed it, they put it away, and they moved on. But here's the problem. Most operating agreements are never tested until something goes wrong. A partner dies, someone wants out, a disagreement happens, a divorce changes the ownership picture, a disability changes the entire dynamic. And that's when many business owners discover something a bit uncomfortable. The agreement they trusted doesn't actually solve the problem. It might describe the problem, but it may not provide a clear path forward. And if you're a business owner who spent years building something meaningful and you want to make sure it's protected, you're in the right place. In this video, I want to walk through where operating agreements commonly fail and what business owners should actually be thinking about instead. Most successful business owners are responsible people. They understand they need structure, they understand that they do need agreements, and so at some point they create an operating agreement. And that's a good thing. The problem is many owners assume the document itself solves the problem. They think, we have an operating agreement, we're good. But an operating agreement is not really designed for the easy years. It's designed for the difficult moments. The moments when money is involved. Relationships are strained. Ownership is changing, emotions are high, and those are exactly the moments when weak agreements are exposed. Let me give you an example. Bob owned a successful company with a partner. Years earlier, they created an operating agreement. At the time, it made a lot of sense. The business was smaller, the relationship was strong, everyone trusted each other, and they were focused on building. They were doing what many business owners do. They handled the paperwork and they moved forward. But fast forward 10 years, the business had changed. They did well and the value had grown significantly. Their families were starting to get involved in the business. Their personal situations had changed. Their goals had even changed. But the agreement had stayed the same. And that's something I see all the time. The agreement was created for the business they used to have, not necessarily the business they had become. One of the biggest dangers with operating agreements is that they can create a false sense of security. Business owners think, we already handled that. But many agreements were created early on in the business when the company was much smaller, before there was significant value, and before anyone was thinking about really difficult situations. And that is totally understandable. When people start a business together, they are usually optimistic. Relationships are strong. Everyone's excited about the future. Nobody is thinking, well, what happens if we disagree on a major issue? What happens if someone dies? What happens if our families become involved? But that's exactly why planning matters. Operating agreements are not for the easy years. They're for the pressure moments. And pressure changes everything. So there are several areas where I consistently see operating agreements fail. Number one, no clear valuation process. This is a big one. Many agreements say something like this: if an owner exits, the business will be valued. But that raises major questions. Who performs the valuation? What methodology is used? When is the valuation determined? What happens if the owners disagree about that value? Because valuation disputes become emotional and very quickly, and the reason is simple. Owners are not just arguing about numbers, they're arguing about fairness. One person thinks the business is worth this, another person thinks it's worth that. And without a clear process, a difficult situation becomes even more tough. Number two, no funding mechanism. This is one of the most common problems that I see. The agreement says if something happens, one owner will buy out the other owner. Okay, but with what money? Where does the liquidity come from? Because a promise to buy someone out is not the same thing as having the ability to do so. So without proper planning, the pressure falls on the business or the remaining owners or the owner's family, sometimes everyone involved. A good agreement doesn't just explain what should happen. It considers how it actually happens. Number 3, unclear transfer restrictions. Another major issue is ownership transfer. What happens if an owner gets divorced, passes away, files for personal bankruptcy, just wants to transfer some of her ownership? Can ownership pass to a spouse? How about children? Other outside parties? These are not hypothetical questions. These are situations real businesses grapple with every day. And if they're not addressed clearly, uncertainty enters the ownership structure. Number 4 is this: deadlock situations. This is especially important in businesses with equal partnership. A 50-50 partnership can work well until the owners disagree. And then the question becomes, who makes the final calls? What happens if neither side agrees? What happens if the relationship just can't continue? And many agreements don't provide a realistic answer. So when there's no clear path forward, a successful business can become completely stuck. But honestly, the biggest problem usually isn't the document itself. The biggest problem is that business owners often never have the difficult conversations. The agreement becomes a substitute for clarity. So instead of asking, what would actually happen? What would feel fair? How would our families be affected? How would we handle disagreement? Owners sometimes simply sign the document and move on. But good planning requires more than paperwork. It requires alignment, because when pressure enters the picture, people do not rely only on legal language. They rely on trust. They rely on mutual expectations and good communication. And if those things were never established, the agreement alone might not be enough. So, a strong operating agreement creates clarity before conflict ever exists. It should establish decision-making authority, create a realistic buyout structure, define a valuation process, address liquidity, create pathways for difficult situations. No agreement can eliminate every possible problem. Businesses involve people, and people are complicated. But a strong agreement reduces uncertainty, and that matters hugely, because uncertainty is one of the biggest threats to a successful business. Now, if you're watching this video and you're thinking, I actually haven't looked at our operating agreement in years, you're not alone. A lot of business owners created these agreements when their company was much smaller, before there was significant value, before their family circumstances changed, before the business became what it is today. But your business today may be very different from the business you had when that agreement was created. So the question isn't, do I have an operating agreement? The question is, would my operating agreement actually work if I needed it tomorrow? If you'd like help thinking through your situation, I invite you to schedule a free 15-minute strategy call with me. Go to hopewellconsult.com. You'll answer a couple of quick questions so we can make sure we're a good fit. And if it looks like I can help, you'll be able to schedule a time directly with me. I am on a mission to empower serious business owners to make great decisions about their legacy. Build it, protect it, pass it on.